Hey YouTube, Kira Tweak here, bringing you all my Aromage Yugioh deck profile for April 2019. Wanted to do a deck profile on the Aromages for a good while now. Big thanks to my girlfriend Marissa. She was actually able to complete the deck with the help of Dual Power, which we got a reprint for a good amount of the more difficult Aromage cards to gather up. Plus, we also had the release of the Link monster for them as well, making the deck a whole lot of fun to play. The whole point of the deck is to keep your life points up and gain a bunch of different effects based on having higher life than your opponent, depending on the type of Aromage monster or cards you have on the field. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off, for the monsters, I run 3 Aromage Rosemary. One of your main ones to go into: while your life points are higher than your opponent's, if a plant monster you control attacks, your opponent cannot activate monster effects until the end of damage step. And once per turn, if you gain life points, you can target one face-up monster on the field and change its battle position. While not as strong against, Link monsters, not being able to change the defense, you can still have some pretty powerful attacks with your Rosemary, being able to stop monster effects when it attacks, and also being able to switch monsters that may have higher attack to defense to easily get over those monsters with her own effects. I also run 3 Aromage Jasmine. A very important one for setup with the deck. During your main phase, while your life points are higher than your opponent's, you can normal summon 1 plant monster in addition to your normal summon or set, except Aromage Jasmine, and you can only gain this effect once per turn. And once per turn, if you gain life points, you can draw 1 card. So the draw power definitely does help to keep hand consistency, and also just being able to set up your field for your Aromages Jasmine Link monster is another big key play as well. And also the fact that she has 1900 defense means you can set this card on the field, and then if your opponent attacks into it, and then just makes life points lower themselves by having a monster that couldn't swing over it, it just plays for good defense as well. Since it doesn't have a normal summon effect, and if you go first and just don't have any other plays to go for, you can go with that play for the setup. And I also have 3 Aromages Angelica in the deck. This is one of your tuner monsters you run. I have 3 in this deck. I might mix around some of the numbers with Bergamot when we get to it, just because I don't have as many Bergamot as I potentially wanted to run in the deck. So I put in a 3rd Angelica. I might move around the Angelica numbers or the next Aromage in the deck, just depending on player preference for the numbers that I wanted to go for. But during either player's turn, you can discard this card, then target 1 Aroma monster in your graveyard, gain life points equal to that target's attack. And while your life points are higher than your opponent's, you can and you control an Aroma monster, and this card is in your graveyard. You can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use each effect of Aromages Angelica once per turn. So you have the setup for the life point gain very, very easily with this card, as long as you have an Aroma monster in the graveyard. But it's also a tuner to go for the Synchro monster for the Aromas, and that is Aromages Rosemary, which we'll get to when we get to the extra deck. But depending on what you wanted to do, I have the 3 of those, or you can drop down the number of Aromage Kananga I have in the deck as well. I put this to 3. I like it for while your life points are higher than your opponent's. Face-up monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense, and once per turn, if you gain life points, you can target 1 spell trap your opponent controls, return it to the hand. So you can get rid of pesky back row, which when Rosemary attacks, it stops monster effects, but being able to clear up that back row with cards like Kananga also do definitely help. But if you wanted to reduce either of the numbers, I may potentially say Kananga, just because Angelica has the graveyard effect and the life point gain discard effect, just to bump up the numbers of Bergamot we run in the deck. I have 1, but one of your more powerful ones to go for sure from the main deck. While your life points is higher than your opponent's, if a plant type monster you control attacks a defense monster, you inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. And once per turn, if you gain life points, this card gains 1000 attack and defense until the end of your opponent's turn. So having 2400 attack alone, and then being able to get that gain, and also giving piercing to your Aroma monsters on the field for a plant monster, being the majority of all the monsters we run in the deck, this definitely does help for that upper hand right there to go into for sure. And I also have 2 Aroma Jars in the deck. Now, the one thing that I might change about this card if I decide not to run Aroma Jar, it does help when it's flipped face up. This card cannot be destroyed by battle while it is face up on the field. And if this card is flipped face up during each player's end phase, you gain 500 life. So it does keep your life points higher. But if you want to go for more of a quicker kind of card to get your life points up, you can substitute Aroma Jar for Poison of the Old Man instead, just for that burn damage to your opponent or life point gain for yourself. Definitely is helpful for sure in the deck, but player preference really, because if you can keep this Aroma Jar and your opponent can't attack over it, that life point gain definitely can come in handy, and just to give you all your aroma monsters for sure. And I also run, just for additional support, 3 Lone Fire Blossom. Just being able to get any of the plant monsters we run in the deck with this card definitely does help for a lot of your plays. So I definitely like running this card at that number, just to go into, like I said, any of the aroma monsters, since they are plants. So you'll have those options available to you. And I also run 2 Rose Lover. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then special summon 1 plant type monster from your hand, and if you do, it is unaffected by your opponent's trap effects this turn. You can only use this effect of Rose Lover once per turn. So setting up in the graveyard, we do run Foolish Burial, so very, very helpful there. But just being able to attack more powerfully with Rosemary is another key play for running this as well. And just for a little more protection from the hand, I run 2 Rose Archer. During either player's turn, when your opponent activates a trap card while you control a plant-type monster, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to negate the activation and destroy it. So more and more, protection against those traps definitely does come in handy when you're going up against your opponent, depending on what option they may have. We have Rose Archer, and just having your other key backups definitely does come in handy. And then for the one-ofs, I run 1 World Carrot Weight Champion, 1 Glow Bulb, and 1 Spore. The Spore definitely does help for some of our more synchro plays, and it's level adjustment. Glow Bulb, just graveyard setup, and then getting other plants in the graveyard if you, by chance, mill, and then can benefit from Angelica's own mill effect. And World Carrot Weight Champion, just having this in the graveyard and sending a plant from my hand or face up on the field, can set up, since basically Jasmine only needs 2 plant monsters to make it, so an easy special summon with this card for sure. And then just setting up other plant monsters in the graveyard to use their effects. And that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. One of the main spells is your field spell, Aroma Garden. Once per turn, if you control an aroma monster, you can gain 500 life points. Also, all monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense until the end of your opponent's next turn, even if this card leaves the field. And if a face-up aroma monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you gain 1,000 life. So just the key play with this field spell is life point boost, and also just being able to bump up your monster's attack as well. So it is a key card that your opponent will target to destroy to stop the life point gain, because they'll want to get over your aroma monsters, but if they're in defense, they'll just keep gaining life. And also just being able to have more to go into keeps them targeting this card and avoiding some of the other cards you may have on the field. I also run the 2 Terraforming, just for easy search for your field spell, because like I said, definitely does help with the life point gain to be used with some of your other cards like Jasmine. And I also run 2 Mark of the Rose. You have plenty of plants in your graveyard to banish with this card to target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Equip with this card and take control of the equipped monster. And once per turn during the end phase, negate this card's effect until your standby phase. So you just have options taking resources from your opponent to then use against them. Definitely does help for a lot of your key combos. Plus you have plenty of link monsters to go into in the extra deck, so you can just use those monsters when you immediately gain control of them for an extra deck play, so you don't have to give it back to your opponent. And I also run 2 double summon. This just helps for that additional normal summon if you can't go into the Jasmine normal summon and you need just 1 more monster on the field to make your play. This one definitely does help with that. I also run 1 Reasoning. You have so many different level monsters in the deck. Just being able to get that special summon keeps your opponent guessing what you may have in your deck to send. And even if they guess it right, sometimes you can just have that right plant monster in the graveyard to special summon, like World Carrot Weight Champion, for example. I also run for a couple other one-ofs, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 1-for-1, and 1 Foolish Burial. Plant setup, basically, with the Foolish Burial. The 1-for-1 to grab any of the level 1s we run in the deck. There are plenty of them, for sure. Plenty of tuners also to summon out. And the Monster Reborn is pretty standard, just grabbing monsters that can definitely help for a specific play out on the field. And then for the traps, I have 1 Dried Winds in the deck. If you wanted to move around, let's say, the number of terraformings, just to drop it down to 1, just for that easy search. For the 3 field spell we're already running, you can try a second Dried Winds. If you gain life points, target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, destroy it. If you control an aroma monster and your life points is at least 3,000 higher than your opponent's, you can pay life points equal to the difference to destroy a face-up monster your opponent controls, whose combined attack is less than the equal to life points you paid. And to activate this effect, and you can only use each effect of Dried Winds once per turn. But very, very helpful to take care of a lot of problems your opponent may have. The aroma monsters in the deck help go on the offensive, but Dried Winds definitely does help just to keep that going. You can also mix around the numbers. I have 1 Humid Winds in here as well. By paying 1,000 lives, you can add 1 aroma monster from your deck to your hand. And if your life points is lower than your opponent's, you can gain 500 life points. You can use each effect of Humid Winds once per turn. So just more options for search with both of these cards. If you wanted to try out 3 Dried Winds, like I said, take out the 1 terraforming, and then if you want a third one, the 1 Humid Winds. I don't have any of the Solemn Brigade in here for more defense, just for the fact that it lowers your life and really goes against the whole purpose of the deck. But that is it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck now. I have 2 Aromaage Jasmine in the deck. It just needs 2 plant monsters to make it. And if your life points are higher than your opponent's, this card and any plant monsters it points to cannot be destroyed by battle. And you contribute 1 monster to this card points to special summon 1 plant monster from your deck in defense. And you can only use this effect of Jasmine once per turn. And once per turn, if you gain life points, add 1 plant monster from your deck to your hand. You have search. You have special summon options. So many available with this card in the deck. Being able to set up those plays for your special summons makes it a key monster to go into each turn if you can, for sure. And it just, like I said, needs 2 plant monsters, so a very easy one to make in the deck as well. And then for a little more generic play, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Topologic Trisbana. I also have 1 Boral Sword and 1 Topologic Bomber Dragon as well. If you don't have the Boral Sword, you can put in Boral Load instead as well. Player preference right there completely. And then for the synchros, I have 2 Aromaage Rosemary in the deck. You can make Rosemary with this card and your Angelica for the tuner. Since you just need 1 tuner and 1 more non-tuner monsters, very, very easy to make with little to no restrictions. And while your life points is higher than your opponent's, all plant monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense. And once per turn, if you gain life points, you can target 1 face-up card your opponent controls. That face-up card has its effects negated until the end of this turn. So you have power boost with the field spell as well in this card. It's just a very easy synchro to make, and then you can stop plenty of annoying cards your opponent may have on the field. And then for additional synchros, just 1 Stardust Charge Warrior, 1 Ancient Pixie Dragon for the field spell use, and 1 Black Rose Dragon, just for other options for the synchro plays you may be able to go in for. We have Rosemary for the level 5s, but we just have 6 and 7 covered as well, since those options may be available to you with other cards in the deck, including the tuners. And then for Exceeds, I have 1 Tornado Dragon, 1 Abyss Dweller, and 1 Phantom Knights of Cursed Javelin as well. You could put in Daigusto Phoenix for the wind benefit you have with some of your other monsters we run in the deck, but that's more of an option if the player wanted to run it. But other than that, that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I was very happy to finally bring out this deck. Can't wait to work on a few more from Dual Power. We also have Dark Neostorm right around the corner, so very excited to do some of those deck profiles also. But until then, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.